All right, welcome to episode 3 of Cannon Fodder, where I'm working through the great books of the Western world, and I'm on Antigone. I've got a couple things I want to say about the project as a whole, but let's leave that till the end, and I'll just get into the book now. Antigone is a play by Sophocles, and it was written in the 400s BC, and it's part of a larger set of plays that revolve around Oedipus. Um, but this was the first one written, and it's the last one in the chronology. And Oedipus is gone by now. And what he is left is a big mess. I'll give you a sort of plot summary in a little bit, but I kind of want to just put a hat on the fact that this play does a pretty good job of connecting the two books that we've already read, which are Plato's Protagoras and Machiavelli's The Prince, because the main character, Creon, who is sort of the tragic hero, if you would, in this play, is sort of stuck between this difficult set of issues, which are he's a king, and it's sort of his civic duty to do what he has to do for a city, and his personal virtues or lack thereof. And when he's doing the right thing for his city, or the thing that he thinks is correct for his city, he's actually running into another set of problems with his own personal virtues. And we'll get into that, but I just wanted to kind of put that up front so we can keep an eye on it as we go. You have to have a little bit of backstory with this one. So Antigone is the daughter of Oedipus. Oedipus, at this point, is gone. He is in exile. And he left two brothers to be sort of fighting it out for the rulership of this area. And in a civil war, these two brothers fought each other, and they both died. And the one, who is Polynices was his name. He was apparently the usurper. He was apparently the one that wasn't supposed to be the king, but sort of ended up fighting for that position. And because of that, there's an issue with his body. You see, the new king, his name is Creon, and he is the one that we're following through this whole tragedy, is the brother-in-law of Oedipus. So he has some he's like the closest there is to the throne. So here he is, and he's coming out swinging because he wants to do a good job and reward the right people and punish the right people. So he gives this order to not bury the body of Polynices, and that for the Greeks is a big deal. It is a big deal because they believe that the soul does not go on to the next stage in a soul's existence without a proper burial. Something interesting about that is if you look at some of the Greek literature from that era, where they're going doesn't really seem quite so nice anyway. Plato has some negative things to say about Hades, while he also has some positive things to say in the Phaedo. Socrates says, maybe it's not all that bad, but the general consensus is it's not that great. Read the Odyssey when Odysseus goes down there. You don't want to be there. So, but either way, I guess it's better to be there than to be, nowhere, or I don't know where you are if you don't get your burial. But that aside, Polynices is not being buried, and there's a command to everyone: do not bury him. He is being punished. Well, Polynices has a sister, and that sister's name is Antigone. And Antigone says, I'm going to bury him. And so she does. There's this interesting element of the book that involves a first burial and a second burial. You see, he gets buried once, and then the guards unbury him so that they can catch the barrier. And some readers believe that like the first burial was not Antigone, it was the gods, or it was some other force. But the second one was definitely Antigone because she gets caught. She gets caught. She gets brought to Creon, and there are now three kind of confrontations. The first, Antigone is confronting, or Creon's confronting Antigone, and her argument is basically, I have to do what I have to do. I don't care if I die. This is divine justice. I am to bury this guy, my brother. And he says, I'm not going to get bossed around by a woman, and sentences her to death by being buried in a cave. The second confrontation is with Haman, who is, here's another relationship that you need to know. Haman is Creon's son. Haman is Antigone's betrothed, engaged, fiance, or however you want to say it. And he has a couple of reasons not to kill her. Ironically, not the main one being that he's engaged to her. But he is saying, basically, you're making a mistake, Creon. I may be younger than you, but I'm listening to what the people are saying. They are not happy with it, with some other reasons. Creon says, I'm not going to be bossed around by a woman. I'm not going to be bossed around by the people. So there you go. That blows up, and he makes a very ominous threat that, you'll never see me again. The next confrontation is with a Tiresias, who is a seer, a prophet, or something like that. And he comes to Creon and he says, the gods aren't happy. They're not feeling what's going on right now. And they don't like that you didn't let this guy get his burial. They don't like that you're punishing Antigone, and they're not accepting my sacrifices. And so Creon says, I'm not going to get bossed around by a woman. I'm not going to get bossed around by the people. I'm not going to get bossed around by the gods. Get lost. So he goes, and shortly after that, he has a change of heart. He realizes, maybe I made a mistake. So he goes to this place where she is being interred. Now, it was a cave. Like, it wasn't like, getting covered with dirt. So she was not dead yet by the burial process. But unfortunately, she was dead yet by the fact that she strangled herself. So Antigone's dead. They show up, and what's his face? Haman. He is not happy about this, and so he kills himself. And then Creon's wife, hearing of this tragedy, kills herself. So now Creon's left with fewer family members. And that's basically the end. So the questions that sort of arise from this book are like, what does it mean to make the right decision? Because at the beginning of the book, Creon appears to be making decisions, if not wisely, he's making reasonable decisions. I think he wants to be a good leader. He wants to show that the sort of people who usurp authority are not treated well. And he's doing so at personal sacrifice. He doesn't want to, ruffle the feathers of his own family. He doesn't want to go against the will of the people. He just wants to rule well. That's how it appears to me. But as the play progresses and he's confronted 1 time, 2 times, 3 times, his reasoning starts to change. No longer is it, I'm going to be a good ruler. It's more like, I'm the boss, and I am going to do what I want to do. And so pride enters into the mix. And, this relates to both of the books that we've looked at so far. With Protagoras, when you're thinking about virtue, and particularly the way that virtue is used by people that are in charge, it's important. Let's put it that way. If you don't have it, there will be consequences. So whereas Machiavelli might say, you don't necessarily need to be good as long as you have this practical element. I don't know if Creon, following Machiavelli's rules, would have made a different decision. I think that there's a possibility that following Machiavelli, Creon would have done the same thing that he did. And he would have had the same consequences that he had. So the civic duty that Creon had for his people at some point crossed with his own personal duty to his, I guess you'd call it daughter-in-law at this point, to his son, to the gods, which is a completely separate ballpark to what he's supposed to be doing for his city. And it just shows that like people wear many hats. And when you mess up in one area, it bleeds over into other areas. So I wonder about Creon. I don't think he was a bad guy. I don't think that he was necessarily wrong on the outset, but I think he didn't take correction. And I think that he had, he had his epiphany too late. And of course, it's a tragedy, right? We know this was going to happen. Everything's setting up for this unfortunate result. But there's also this element of the gods. And I think that, Machiavelli sort of brings this up in his book, in The Prince, by saying, like, you can do everything right, but at the end of the day, there's still this element of fortune. There's still this stuff that's sort of beyond your control that you would just have to sort of roll with the best that you possibly can. And this is in all sorts of ancient literature. It's in the Bible. It's in Ecclesiastes. It's in Proverbs. I'm sure it's everywhere. That, we're sort of a player, sometimes an important player, sometimes a less important player in this thing that's happening. And we may be able to have some kind of influence on it, and we may not. And when we're not, we're just kind of dragged along by the flow of fortune, by the whim of the gods. And the best thing we can do is just set ourselves up correctly. Machiavelli would probably have more practical advice for how you do that. And someone like Plato might have advice that involves making yourself the best person that you can, growing in virtue, and aligning yourself with the good. So you get to the end of the book like this, and you just you don't have a real firm understanding of what could be, what should have been, how to orient yourself differently. I think the big takeaway I would have is just you have to do the best you can with what you've got. And I think that where Creon went wrong is that he had quite a bit of pushing. He had quite a bit of opportunity to change his course, and he didn't. And that was tragic, if you would. So that's Antigone. And I want to just briefly talk about sort of more big picture stuff with this project. First of all, I don't really choose the book before I finish filming the previous episode. And so I don't have like the direction that we're going right now. But if that's something that you would appreciate as someone who's listening, who's watching, I could come up with that. So let me know. And secondly, right now I'm dealing with sort of smaller books. I'm trying to get myself warmed up. And what that means is I kind of have more time to read than I have to film. So I'm sitting on these books for a couple of days, which is nice. But as I get to the bigger ones, I probably won't. It'll probably be quite a bit of reading and then, less filming relative to the length of the book. So I may be splitting those up into multiple sections. That's just kind of a heads up for the direction. So I don't know where I'm going next, but stick around, subscribe, and let me know your thoughts on this one. Talk to you soon.